What's up everyone, VenomousStare here, back with another 2 versus 2 game on the map Fields of Death. Now if you like 2 versus 2, I'm really one of the only people who actually makes videos left. Quite honestly, I'm one of the only people who casts 1v1 pro games on YouTube still. Artosis doesn't do it anymore, Husky doesn't really do it anymore, so if you like StarCraft 2, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any videos. And I really like 2v2 because it's an interesting game type, and the queue times are still relatively short. The 4v4 queue times have honestly gotten a lot longer since Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. But I really think that 2v2 is similar to 1v1. I like it because you can still scout and kind of figure out what's going on. In a 4v4, there's just so many people and so many variables. It's kind of hard to account for everything and actually play in a strategic way. It's just kind of a clusterfuck. And even if you build the counter one person, there's still 3 other people. So 4v4 has its uses. It's good for new players, but 2v2 is something that you can play and it still be a legitimate piece of competition, as opposed to just kind of like a war. That's the way I look at it. Like 3v3 and 4v4, it's just like a war, and there are just going to be a lot of things out of your control, and you're just a part of the war. But in 2v2, it's still very much a controlled game type that you can strategize and coordinate. And not to say that you can't coordinate in 4v4, but the coordination in 4v4 is usually like, okay, I'll go Void Rays, and then you guys protect me. Or I'll go Ground Army, you go Air Army, because if we all make 200 supply of ground units, we can't do anything. So the playstyle is way different in 4v4. 3v3, it's kind of in the middle. As we see, A-Ramp has an expansion. Savage Wood's about to take a super early third. Hold on a second. My dog Rhaegar really likes receipts. That's his favorite thing to do, is go destroy receipts. Cybercore about done here for Odin, the blue Protoss. And he's going to do this classic double adept warp gate opener. Now one thing to note here is he just kind of stopped probe production for no reason. You don't want to do that, especially in the early game. If you have the money, you always want to be making workers as Terran and Protoss. He had the money, he didn't have his probe down here earlier, I guess, but you always want to squeak out as many workers as you can, because if you're constantly producing workers, then it's way harder to fall behind in a game. Think of it as though if you're constantly producing workers, that's the correct way to macro. And people like Odin, who just don't make workers, see, like right now, once again, he has the money, he's not making workers. You want to always be making workers, because even though he has 17 out of 16 here, there he queues up a couple, you still want to overmake, because once your expansion finishes, you can transfer like 8 workers, and basically you have a base and a half economy right out the gate. Double Adept Opener is going to come in here, and Savagewood doesn't have any really units yet. He went CC first and did not wall in, but he has a couple Gem Rainers, and his buddy, almost called him Elusive Smoke, that's kind of funny. A-Ramp is going to help him clean up these Adepts, 1 and 2. So the Double Adept Opener gets a little scouting information, but not much more, as the Out Now boys in red deflected that scout. 2 tech labs and a factory coming for Savagewood, and he's very low on minerals here, trying to produce 3 SCVs at a time, trying to get double upgrades. So Savagewood, he's definitely taking advantage of Fields of Death, which has a very long rush distance that can be seen by 2 towers, and also has lots of free bases and an easily defendable choke. All of those factors make it a good defender's map. Consider that on some maps you have to defend large chokes just to take a natural. On this base, you have one super easy to defend ramp, and then you have another one below it, which is another defender's advantage. Whenever you see ramps and maps, and I know I'm talking about maps a lot, but not a whole lot going on, it's Fields of Death. But ramps are good for defenders because you can sit at the top of them and make your opponent commit up a ramp, and they take free damage as you're waiting. You can also place like 1 Bane at the top of ramps in ZVZ, and people, when they try to run lings in, will just get screwed. ZVZ tip for you, by the way, click one Baneling out of your control group and leave it on the high ground. That way, anytime your opponent tries to run in your main, boom, completely countered for huge gain. And whenever your opponent tries to run into your main, remember that they're not ever going to be considering there's a Bane there, and they're just trying to commit super hard and get up into your main to do damage. So it almost always works. And this is something you should aim to do in 2v2 as well. A lot of times in 2v2, you're going to, and Overlord died, you're going to have an open natural. So you have to figure out ways to defend in the mid game against Lings that isn't a wall in, because certain maps like Magma Mines don't have this super defendable, like there's not as much distance between here and the rush distance, and there's not as many watchtowers either. Another big proponent of defense is these watchtowers, because you can take these watchtowers and it's very hard for your opponent to catch you off guard. So Marines cleared out Overlords and then died. Not a whole lot going on. A ramp with nice saturation here. He has a lair. Savagewood, though, just has a disgusting income. If we go to Harvesters, he's tied with the Zerg, which is nice, but he's absurdly far ahead in minerals because of 3cc mule power. A ramp, he's teching with ground upgrades, so to me this, even though he has some roaches in the mid game, this is indicative of the fact that he's going to go into ultras. That's usually what happens when you see people make roaches and still bother to go melee upgrades. A ramp as a player does favor Ling styles and fast hive styles. But we might see a fast hive from X Factor here as his lair just finished. And by the way, in StarCraft 2 they changed the ping system. Before, by the way, the hotkey is Alt G, or at least it was. It certainly still is, right? Yeah, it's still Alt G. But like League of Legends, you can do Alt G, woo, and then drag your mouse, and then it will do different pings, like defend me or whatever. They're like the same from League of Legends. So if you just do it, like if you play League of Legends, it's like the same directional ping style where I think down is defend and right is I'm on the way. Observer up top for Odin at the height of the base of the Out Now clan. Great spot for an OBS. It sees units transferring out to the third, to the rocks. It sees units, almost all units that are going to be produced are going to be seen coming out because he sees the front door and the natural door. Both players here are playing defensive, and they're producing units defensively at home. Savagewood finally has his medevacs out, so he can start to be a little aggressive. Hive on the way for X Factor. A ramp is also getting a hive, but his is a bit later. Savagewood picking off more Overlords. This is extremely important to do because limiting Zerg's vision, especially in ZVZ, is very important. So the more OVs you clear, the better. As A ramp takes a bad Baneling trade there, and he's going to lose his army. Odin, the Protoss player, is going to run over and assist his ally in the blue. Savagewood is going to say, well, fuck that, I'm not running into that, and try to drop this fourth. So the blue team is going to run over and defend this fourth, presumably, but then Savagewood has this main to fly, or this natural to fly into. And that's one thing that's worth noting about Fields of Death, is it's very good for defense, but anytime a game goes to macro games, this base will get dropped, and then the player will drop this one. A recall being used defensively for Odin, but Savagewood can just kill Banes now. He just killed 2 Banes with 2 Marines, so great trade for Savagewood, because remember, a Baneling costs minerals and gas to make, and it cost Overlord, or it cost larva and minerals and time to make the Zergling. So killing a Baneling with 1 Marine is very good, mostly because of the gas that gets wasted. Banes go off there, and suddenly Savagewood is going to try to stem and run in. A-Ramp kills this gold base. Savagewood is doing good damage. He has this Protoss player out-upgraded, and he also has an absurd amount of income still. Savagewood is pressuring forward here. Now, a Ultralisk Cavern is on the way for the blue team, as well as a Spire and a Greater Spire. Ultra Cavern is on the way for A ramp too, so the blue team is going to have a bit of a power spike here, where X Factor macroed better than A ramp and got his tech at a quicker time. A ramp does have this gold base up. He has nice macro hatches here. This is very important for spending your money. New players, you want to do this. You want to make macro hatches, especially in long games, because you want to be able to spend your money, which we see A ramp is doing a pretty decent job of, as he is saving somewhat for ultras. But as his cavern just finished, he gets 3-3 as well. But the reason you want to make macro hatches is because instantly dropping your mineral income and spending your money is the difference between winning and losing games almost all the time. Because if you have a lot of money, you want to be able to spend it instantly. You don't want to have to, you don't want to have to wait. Because if you have 3,000 minerals and you can easily produce a big army and kill your opponent, as we see in a huge pylon pick-off from Savagewood, he pretty much shut down a couple gates. It wasn't as huge as I thought because both of these forges are still whirling away. Lingbane comes in there and kills X Factor's gold base again. This gold base is almost impossible to hold. I call it the Folly gold base. There are a lot of gold bases in 2v2 that are like this, as we see a Blink come forward. But there are many gold bases in 2v2 that people want to take and try to take, and it's just idiotic because they're undefendable. The top gold base on Magma Mines is like this. You should never ever take that base. It's so bad. 3-3 on the way for A ramp. So A ramp, he's making his ultras. He's going to attack here, but he really is out ultralist. He only has one. The blue player has 7. And suddenly, the Out Now clan looks like they might be in a little trouble, but A ramp has a ton of lings. They're upgraded very well, and Odin, simply put, has not been macroing as well as he could. He's trying for a little bit of disruptor play here, and Savagewood is going to kite back with his Marauders. But at this point, if we go to upgrades, Savagewood just has the Protoss player out upgraded, and it's very hard to trade Stalkers versus Marauders with an upgrade disadvantage. Terran Bio versus Protoss is one of those things, one of those matchups, as we see an Ultralist trying to run around and kill SCVs but fail. Terran Bio versus Protoss ground army, especially when it's Stalker based, is very, very based on upgrades. It's one of those matchups that you can't really trade if you have an upgrade disadvantage, similar to Zerglings versus upgraded Zealots. So the Out Now clan is going to run in here with a little bit of Ultraling and some Bio, but A ramp has Infestors. This is huge in team games, and a Passion Raider is going to rain hell down upon the blue team. Savagewood still has the space mining away. Ooh, Manor Mule's coming down, and X Factor's almost certainly dead. Notice this base from Odin didn't have the appropriate amount of workers, and he didn't reallocate his chrono. So the Out Now clan really just out-macroed the blue team here, and Odin is trying to defend. Double upgrades haven't kicked in. He should have been chronoing them. If you're going to go double upgrades, you have to chrono them. You can't leave your chrono boost on your third Nexus. If you enjoyed this game, subscribe for more.